Sam was in the elevator, replaying the last conversation like it was a bad song stuck on repeat. He'd said the right facts, he'd made the logical point, he'd even had the receipts. And yet the other person's face had tightened, the energy had dropped, and the whole thing ended with a polite, cold, okay. Sam stepped out on his floor and thought, why does being right keep making things worse? Because people don't move on logic first, and then they use logic to justify whatever they already felt. And once you see that, everything about friendship, influence, leadership, even love, starts to look different. This is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And by the end, you'll know how to talk so people lean in instead of pulling away. How to handle conflict without turning it into a war. I share how to make someone feel respected without faking it. And how to lead people without creating resentment. We're going to walk through every major part and the core principles so when you're done, you won't feel like you got a shallow recap. You'll feel like you actually own the ideas. Now, before we get into tactics, but it's the foundation of the whole book, you don't start by trying to control them. You start by changing how you handle people. And the first part of the book is basically 3 principles that act like a steering wheel. If you don't have them, your conversations drift into the ditch no matter how good your intentions are, because it hits your pride. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. But because criticism triggers defense, it doesn't matter how reasonable your point is, the second someone feels attacked, their brain stops listening for truth and starts searching for protection. Think about it like this. Criticism is like trying to wash a stain by rubbing harder and harder. You don't realize you're grinding it deeper into the fabric. You're not cleaning, you're setting it. Sam learned this in a very normal, very modern way, in a team chat. He worked at a mid-sized company, and his team had a deadline slipping. A coworker named Chris kept missing small tasks, and each miss was like a tiny leak in the boat. He wrote the perfect message, clear, direct, efficient. He typed, "We can't keep doing this. You're holding everyone up. You need to be more responsible." And hit send. At first, nothing happened. Then the replies started coming in. Short replies, defensive replies. People suddenly getting confused about tasks they understood yesterday. Chris went quiet for the rest of the day. And the weird part? The project got slower. That night, Sam told himself he'd just been honest. But the next morning, his manager pulled him aside and said, "Your point is valid, but the way it landed made it harder for everyone." Sam's stomach dropped. He didn't want to be the problem. So he tried a different approach the next time. Same issue, same coworker, different delivery. He pointed at the process. He said, "I think our handoffs are messy. Can we agree on a simple checklist so nothing falls through? I'll draft it." Same content, different emotional temperature. And suddenly, Chris participated. People added ideas, nobody felt cornered. Sam didn't have to win a fight, he just had to keep the room open. That's what Carnegie is protecting. He's trying to keep the door unlocked. You can't move anyone. Now you might be thinking, okay, so never criticize. That sounds fake. It's not about never addressing problems. It's about the order you address them. People need to feel safe before they can hear truth. That's why the second principle matters. Give honest and sincere appreciation. Not flattery, not manipulation. Real appreciation. Because people are starving for it. Most adults walk around with an invisible sign that says, "I'm trying, notice me." You become magnetic. Here's a quick way to tell the difference between flattery and appreciation. Flattery is vague and self-serving. It's about getting something. Appreciation is specific and generous. It's about seeing something. Sam tested this at home with his younger sister. And she was studying late, juggling school and a part-time job, and she'd been snapping at everyone. One night, she came into the kitchen and complained about everything. The food, the noise, the stress, the unfairness. Sam almost snapped back. Instead, he paused and looked for something real. He said, "I know you're tired, and I've been watching you grind for weeks. You're doing something hard and you're not quitting. I respect that." She didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then her shoulders dropped like she'd been carrying a backpack of bricks, and her voice got softer. That's not magic. That's human. When you appreciate someone sincerely, you take pressure off their ego. You give them a moment to breathe. They stop fighting the world. Okay, so if that was surprising, wait until you hear the third principle. because this is the one that turns communication into influence, arouse in the other person, and eager want. This is Carnegie's way of saying something blunt. People don't do things because you want them to. They do things because they want them. So if you want cooperation, you don't push your desire. You connect to theirs. The cat doesn't care. The cat walks in on its own. That's how eager want works. Sam used this in the workplace again, but in a more subtle way. He needed a coworker from another department to help him with a report. This coworker, Maya, was always busy, always booked, always circling back. Old Sam would have sent a message that sounded like a demand wearing a suit. New Sam tried the eager want. He messaged, "If we can pull this report together by tomorrow, it'll make your department look great in the review. I can handle the messy data cleanup. I just need your insight on the final 2 metrics." Notice what he did. He made it easier. He made it about her result, and he made the request feel like a win. Maya replied in 10 minutes. That's the first part of the book. 3 foundational behaviors. No criticism or complaining, real appreciation. And speaking to what the other person wants. If you only did these 3, your relationships would already improve. But Carnegie doesn't stop there. He moves into something even more powerful. How do you make people like you, but in a way where people feel good around you? Doors open, conversations deepen, resistance drops. Carnegie gives 6 core principles here, and they sound simple, until you realize almost nobody does them consistently. The first one is the root of all the others. Become genuinely interested in other people. Not act interested. Not perform curiosity. Actually care is to make them feel seen. A lot of people enter conversations like they're holding a microphone. Carnegie wants you to enter like you're holding a flashlight. You're not trying to be impressive, you're trying to be present. Sam tried this at a friend's birthday dinner. He was sitting beside someone he didn't know well, a guy named Omar. Sam's default mode was to fill silence with facts, work, news, random opinions. But that night he tried a different rule. He asked Omar, "What's something you've been obsessed with lately?" Omar's face lit up. He started talking about cooking, perfecting one dish for weeks, testing different spices, watching videos, getting feedback. Sam could have nodded politely and waited for his turn to talk. Instead, he leaned in and asked, "What's the hardest part to get right? And what made you start?" They talked for a long time. Later, Omar said, "You're easy to talk to." Sam didn't become easy to talk to by being clever. He became easy to talk to by being curious. This is like watering a plant. People open when they feel cared for. If you don't water, they don't bloom. And often misunderstood. Smile. Not because you need to fake happiness, because your face is part of your message. A smile is a social signal that says, "You're safe with me." And safety is the start of connection. Think about walking into a store where the employee looks annoyed. Your body tightens. You want to leave. Now imagine the employee looks relaxed and warm. Your body loosens. Same store, different signal. The third principle is one of Carnegie's most repeated ideas. Remember that a person's name is, to that person, the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Names are identity. When someone uses your name naturally, you feel recognized. It feels like you were forgettable. Sam tested this with an experiment. He decided for 2 weeks he'd make names a priority. He'd repeat them once when he heard them. He'd use them once in the conversation. And he'd write a quick note after meeting someone. It felt awkward for the first couple days. Then, it started to feel normal. On day 8, he ran into someone from a networking event. She said, "Hey, you're Sam." And Sam said, "Hey, Priya." Her eyes widened for a second like she didn't expect it. And her tone warmed instantly. That's the crazy part. People don't just like being remembered. They like the feeling of being remembered. The fourth principle is one of the most valuable social skills you can build. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. Most people listen like they're waiting at a red light. The second it turns green, they speed into their own story. Carnegie is saying, stop trying to drive, let the other person drive. Sam had to learn this in his relationship. His partner came home upset about something that happened at work. Old Sam would immediately go into fix mode. He'd give solutions, strategies, efficiency. But that night he tried the listener rule. He said, tell me what happened. And then he did something hard. He didn't interrupt, he didn't correct, he didn't rush. He just asked small questions that kept the story going. How did that make you feel? What did you wish they said instead? What do you want to do next? After a while, his partner exhaled and said, thank you. I didn't need you to solve it. I needed you to hear me. Because he realized he'd been using help as a disguise for control. Good listening isn't passive, it's a form of respect. It's like giving someone the stage for a moment and showing them you're not bored by their existence. Now, the fifth principle takes listening one step further. Talk in terms of the other person's interests. A lot of people talk in terms of their own interests and then get confused when nobody cares. This principle is about translation. If you want someone to care about your idea, you translate it into their world. It's like trying to sell someone a jacket by describing the stitching pattern, when all they care about is staying warm. Sam used this when he wanted his friend to join him at the gym. His friend didn't care about strength, or discipline, or gains. But he did care about having more energy for his kids. So Sam said, if we do this together, you won't feel dead on weekends. You'll actually have energy to run around with them. That landed, because it was in his language. The sixth principle is the one that turns all of this into a superpower, and do it sincerely. That's the heart of Carnegie's philosophy. People don't just want to be liked. They want to matter, but by honoring their humanity. A simple way to do this is to acknowledge effort, perspective, and value, not in a dramatic speech. It's in small moments. Thanks for taking the time. I learned something from that. I like how you think about this. I appreciate you. But small things are what relationships are made of. Okay, so now we've covered how to reduce friction and create warmth. But influence doesn't really get tested when everything is friendly. Influence gets tested in conflict, in disagreement, and you can feel your own ego rising like a storm. Because it's the opposite of what most people do, is to avoid it. Not because you're weak, because arguments are rarely about truth, they're about winning. And when someone feels like they're losing, they'll defend their position even harder, even if they secretly know they're wrong. An argument is like trying to blow out a candle with a fan. You think you're controlling it, but you're feeding it. So instead of arguing, Carnegie gives a set of principles that keep dignity intact. Show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say, you're wrong. That sentence is gasoline. Even if you don't say the exact words, the tone can do the same damage. Sam had a moment like this with his dad. His dad had a strong opinion about money, and Sam disagreed, then turned sharp. Sam tried to win with facts, charts, examples, logic. His dad's face hardened. The room got colder. Sam realized he was fighting for victory, not connection. So he tried again later when things were calm. He said, I might be missing something. Help me understand how you see it. His dad talked a lot. Sam listened. Then Sam said, I get why that made sense for you. Here's what I'm worried about on my side. Same disagreement, different approach. The goal wasn't to crush his dad's view, it was to build a bridge strong enough for both of them to stand on. Another principle Carnegie gives is painful but powerful. If you're wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Most people defend their mistakes like their identity depends on it. But the person who admits a mistake becomes instantly more trustworthy. It's like paying a small cost now to avoid a massive cost later, and then realized he'd misread the data. Old Sam would have tried to twist it. New Sam said, that's on me. I misread the numbers and I jumped too fast. I'm sorry. The room relaxed, and the conversation moved forward. Carnegie also says, begin in a friendly way. Your first tone sets the thermostat. If you start hot, the whole room stays hot. Start gentle and people stay open longer. Then there's a principle that sounds like a trick, but it's really about agreement. Start with questions to which the other person will answer yes. The point is not to manipulate. The point is to build momentum. Agreement creates a sense of partnership. Disagreement creates distance. So instead of saying, you need to change, you start with shared truth. Do we both want the project to succeed? Do we both want this to be fair? Do we both want less stress? Yes? Now you're on the same side. Carnegie adds another important rule. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. Because when someone talks, they feel heard. And when they feel heard, they soften. Sam used this when he had a conflict with a coworker who felt ignored. Instead of defending himself, Sam said, "Tell me what I did that made you feel that way." He let the coworker speak. Then he repeated back what he heard. And suddenly the anger dropped. People get calmer when their story has been witnessed. Now, here's one of Carnegie's most sneaky, powerful ideas. Let the other person feel the idea is his or hers. Because people protect their own ideas like they protect their home. If you try to drag them into your plan, they resist. They feel ownership. Think of it like a coat. If you shove a coat onto someone, they push back. If you hold it open and let them slide into it, it feels like their choice. Sam learned this while mentoring a newer colleague. He wanted the colleague to organize their work better. But every time Sam said, "You should do this," the colleague got stiff. So Sam shifted. He asked, "What system do you think would make your day less chaotic?" The colleague described something close to what Sam wanted. Sam said, "That's smart. Want to test it for a week and see what happens?" Now it wasn't Sam's idea being forced. It was the colleague's idea being supported. Next, Carnegie says you have to try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Because your brain thinks your view is the default. But people behave based on what makes sense to them, not to you. So if you want influence, you need empathy, not fake empathy. Real curiosity about their reasons. Be sympathetic with the other person's ideas and desires. This doesn't mean you agree. It means you acknowledge. And acknowledgement is like loosening a knot. You can't untie it if you keep pulling tighter. Carnegie also says to appeal to the nobler motives. People like seeing themselves as good, responsible, caring. So when you ask for something, don't appeal to the lowest impulse. Appeal to what they want to be proud of. Then he says to dramatize your ideas. In other words, don't dump facts like dry sand. Make the idea visual. Make it memorable, a story, a contrast, a picture. Because brains remember pictures better than lectures. And then there's a principle that can light a fire. Throw down a challenge. People often respond to a worthy challenge more than a polite request. Can we see if we can beat last month's performance? Can we solve this in a way nobody expects? Can we prove we can do it? It wakes people up. But the key with all of these persuasion principles is the same. You're not trying to win against someone. You're trying to win with them into leadership. Because leadership is influence with responsibility. If you're a leader, you have to correct mistakes, but you can't poison relationships. So Carnegie gives a set of principles for changing people without giving offense or arousing resentment. The first is to begin with praise and honest appreciation. This isn't sandwich feedback done like a robot. This is recognizing something real before you address what needs to change. Because people can handle correction when they feel valued. Then he says, call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Instead of making someone feel exposed, you guide them. You make it easier to fix without shame. Carnegie says, talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. This is powerful because it removes the hierarchy. It says, I'm human too. Sam used this when he started leading a small team. One day, an employee made an error that cost time. Sam felt that old urge to snap. Instead, he said, I've made the same kind of mistake before. I remember doing it when I was rushing. Let's look at what happened and set up a guardrail. The employee didn't shut down. They leaned in. Because Sam didn't make them feel like a failure. He made them feel like someone learning. Carnegie also says ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Questions invite thinking, orders invite resistance. Do you think there's a better way to handle this next time? What would make this easier to do correctly? How would you solve it if you were in charge? Then let the other person save face. This one is huge. People will do almost anything to avoid humiliation. So if you correct someone, protect their dignity. Do it privately. Do it gently. Do it without turning it into a performance. Then praise every improvement. Not just the big wins, the small steps. Because praise is fuel, and when people feel progress, they keep going. Carnegie says give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. This is like handing someone a mirror and showing them the best version of themselves. You're someone who cares about quality. You're the kind of person who follows through. I trust your judgment. Most people rise to that. Then he says, use encouragement. Make the fault seem easy to correct. If you make change feel impossible, people give up. If you make it feel doable, they try. And finally, make the other person happy about doing what you suggest. Not pressured, not trapped. Happy. Because that's how you create willing cooperation, not silent resentment. At this point, you can see the pattern across the whole book. Carnegie is not teaching tricks. He's teaching respect. He's teaching emotional intelligence before that phrase became popular. And he's teaching a reality that most people learn too late, long after they forget what you said. Now, depending on the edition, the book also includes sections about letters that produced remarkable results and rules for making home life happier. Some later editions remove or shorten these parts, but the spirit is consistent. Carnegie highlights that even in writing, the same principles apply: respect, appreciation, making the other person feel important, speaking to what they want. And with home life, the themes are familiar. Don't nag, don't try to remake someone into your project, avoid harsh criticism, give honest appreciation, pay attention to the small kindnesses, be courteous. None of this is flashy, but relationships aren't built on flashy. They're built on the tiny moments. A tone, a pause, a thank you, a name remembered, a mistake forgiven. Here's a simple analogy that ties the whole book together. Your relationships are like a bank account. Every sincere appreciation is a deposit. Every unnecessary criticism is a withdrawal. Every moment you make someone feel small is a fee. And one day, if you keep withdrawing, you look up and realize the account is empty. Then you wonder why nobody calls, why nobody helps, why nobody trusts you. Carnegie is teaching you how to stay wealthy in that account. But there's an even deeper layer here. And it's worth saying out loud. These principles only work if you actually mean them. If you use them like a script to get what you want, people feel it. Humans have a built-in detector for fake interest. So the real challenge isn't memorizing the rules. It's becoming the kind of person who enjoys practicing them. Sam had to learn that too. At first, he tried to use the principles like tools, like hacks. He'd smile because the rule said smile. He'd say names because the rule said names. He'd ask questions because the rule said questions. And it felt awkward. Then one night, he caught himself doing something different. He was talking to a cashier who seemed stressed. And instead of rushing, Sam asked, "Rough day?" The cashier sighed and said, "Yeah, my kid's sick." Sam said, "I'm sorry, that's heavy. I hope they feel better soon." No tactic, no strategy, just human. And the cashier smiled for real. This is the point. This is what Carnegie was pointing at. The rules are not a mask. They're a reminder of how to be decent. Now let's make it practical. Because the difference between knowing and using is everything. Here are a few things you can start doing right now based on what we just covered. First, before you correct someone, pause and ask yourself one question. And what emotion will get us there? If the outcome is cooperation, anger won't help. Start with calm. Second, practice sincere appreciation once per day. Pick one person and name one specific thing you genuinely value about them. Keep it simple. Keep it real. Watch what happens over time. Third, in your next conversation, focus on listening like it's your job. Ask 2 follow-up questions before you share your opinion to understand. Fourth, the next time you disagree, try replacing your argument with curiosity. Say, "Help me understand how you're seeing it." That one sentence can turn a fight into a bridge. Fifth, use names, not in a weird way, just naturally. People soften when they feel recognized. And if you want a small challenge, try this for 1 week. No complaints out loud, none. Not because problems aren't real, but because you're training your brain to move from irritation to influence. You'll notice how often complaining is just a habit. And you'll notice how much more power you have when you replace it with action. Because here's the truth, and still lose. and quietly win. That's it for this video. I hope it was useful and gave you something real to think about. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.